Alright, here we go. 6.1 notes. We are going to transition to more complicated exponent properties. Let me just refresh your memory though. Remember, if you had 4 squared, that means 4 times 4, which is 16. If you have, say, 4 to the negative 2, it's 1 over 4 squared, which is 1 over 16. It's assumed after Algebra 1, and we reviewed those at the beginning of the year, that you know how to do this. And I want to do one more thing before I move to the one that's on the page, and that is if you have a to the 1 over n power, this is what's new for us. This means you're doing the nth root of a. So, for example, if I wrote 16 to the 1/2 power, that's just a different way to write the square root of 16. If you go on to calculus, you will see the huge benefit to knowing this. When we take derivatives and integrals, this makes our life so much easier if you know this. Okay, so I know right now you might say, okay, we already know this a different way. There's a very, very good reason, but you sometimes have to wait a while. 8 to the 1/3 would mean the cube root of 8. The cube root of 8 is 2. On the front board here, ignore this. Alex put this up to challenge me, so I'm working on this. You guys might want to do it as well. It's how can you take the numbers and get 6? So like to get, you could do 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. 9, or the 3 3s, you could do 3 times 3 is 9 minus 3. So I've done the 2s, the 3s, the 6s, and I did the 9s already. But I'm not writing up how you do that one, so you guys can do it. I'm trying, I'm stuck on the zeros, but anyway. So these are some numbers you're supposed to know. Like you're supposed to be able to do square roots and cube roots without a calculator. I will show you how to use them, but it's meant for larger numbers. So if I look at here's 2 cubed is 8, so the cube root is 2. It's the number above it. All right, so when you have a to the m over n power, see this number up here is just like what we did here. That's the top number. Now we're going to look at different roots. So for example, or let's write it like this. This could be the nth root of a to the m. You can put it out there. So let's look at number 1. It says if I want to find 16 to the 3/2 power, it's the square root of 16, and you guys, we don't put a little 2 for square root. And then we're going to cube it. Well, the square root of 16 is 4, and we've seen 4 cubed several times when we did SOAP, when we were factoring cubes. So this should be one that we're familiar with, and that would be 64. So 16 to the 3/2 is 64. Number 2, this will be the cube root of 125, and we're going to square it. If you need to, look at my sideboard here. And 125, what's the cube root of 125? 5. So it's 5 squared. 5 squared is 25. Number 3, I have a negative exponent. So I have to remember the negative exponent property that makes it 1 over 8 to the 4/3. Well, 4/3 power means the cube root of 8 to the 4th. So that's 1 over 2 to the 4th. And I look at my list, 2 to the 4th would be 16. I'll tell you the most common mistake that I see from students with this is with a negative exponent, they'll drop the numerator and put 16 down because they think, well, I'm going to go figure out 8 to the 4/3 and then remember to put it back. Students don't remember, so don't drop it. Don't drop it because first of all, it's wrong. It's technically wrong, but then most of the time we'll lose it. All right, so let's look at number 4. This would be 1 over 32 to the 3/5 power. This means the 5th root of 32 being cubed. All right, so this one's on the board. What's the 5th root of 32? And then 2 cubed is 8, so it's 1/8. All right, I want you to try the second row. Try 5 through 8 now. See if you're getting the gist of it. What? Oh. Let's look at these. And then number 8, I was really being silly on this one, but let's see if you guys pick up on it. Number 5, this is the square root of 4 to the 5th, so that's 2 to the 5th, which is 32. And once you get the hang of this, I can do these without writing anything down except the answer. Like I do it in my head. That's 2 to the 5th, 32. That's how I do them. This is 1 over 9 to the 1/2. That's the square root of 9, so it's 1/3. The 4th root of 81, you're going to need to look at your list. I'd recommend maybe making an index card and keep using it because you may not be familiar with some of those, but we need to become familiar with them so they become natural to us. Now number 8, this is the 8th root of 1 to the 7th. Now when you think about this, let's sort of back it up that we're thinking to what we've done previously. If I look at, say, the square root of 9, that means what number times itself is 9? Well, it's 3. When I do the 4th root of 81, it's what number times itself 4 times is 81? It's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So then when I go to do number 8, if I want the 8th root of 1, what number times itself 8 times is 1? Is 1. Okay, that's why I was being a little bit silly. And then 1 to the 7th is still 1. All right, number 9. 4 to the negative 3/2 would be 1 over 4 to the 3/2. So that's the square root of 4 being cubed. So that's 1 over 2 cubed, which is 1/8. Now the next 3 deal with negative numbers, and we have to be very, very careful here. If I have a parenthesis around negative 27 to the negative 1/3, that means the negative goes with the 27 wherever it goes. So this becomes 1 over parenthesis negative 27 to the 1/3. And that means 1 over the cube root of negative 27. Can you think of a number that when you take it times itself 3 times, it would produce negative 27? Negative 3. And that's true. Now, something I need to refresh your memory on is in a fraction, we always put the negative in the numerator. We don't leave it down in the denominator. Okay. Now, 11 and 12 are tricky, so let's look at these carefully. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of the negative exponent, and that makes it 1 over parenthesis negative 16 to the 3/4 power. Now, this is going to become the 4th root of negative 16, and that answer is being cubed. So remember, in the fraction, the denominator is the root, and the top number is the power. All right, can you think of a number, and before you answer me, I want you to think and test it first. Can you think of a number that when I multiply it times itself 4 times, it's going to produce negative 16? Okay, good job. No, if you think it's negative 2, that's positive 16. So this one is not a real number. please do not put no solution or the no solution symbol, because this is not an equation. That doesn't make sense. But you need to write it's not a real number. All right, now, before I do number 12, I've talked about this earlier, and I know you talk about it in Algebra 1. Do you remember when you have 1x, we don't leave the 1 in front? And if you had a negative 1 times x, again, we drop the 1, but we leave a negative 1, or a negative symbol. So in number 12, negative 16, 3 to the 3/4 power, there's no parenthesis. So these are different. Well, I know this one isn't even a negative exponent, but this means, this is the way mathematicians can indicate there was a negative 1 out front. So this means negative 1 times 16 to the 3/4, and then that's the 4th root of 16 to the 3rd. Now this one's doable. I can figure this one out. So it's 2 to the 3rd. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, we do need to follow the order of operations, okay? All right, any questions on those? All right. It says solve each equation. What I want you to write down is you want to isolate the powered term. That's like x to some power or x minus a number to some power. So in number 13, I want to solve 4x to the 5th equals 128. I don't have the x to the 5th alone. So I need to divide by the 4. And I get x to the 5th equals 32. Now, you can figure this out one of two ways. You can say, okay, what to the 5th power is 32? I think you can figure it out. Or you want to take the 5th root of both sides. And so x is 2. All right, number 14. X minus 3 to the 4th equals 21. Well, I do have the something to a power. But I need to refresh your memory. Do you remember when we did quadratics and I had x squared equals 36? And the answer is plus or minus 6. When you have an even root, there's two possibilities. It could have been a positive or a negative. So then I'm getting x equals 3 plus or minus, the 4th root of 21. Now, the 4th root of 21 isn't a whole number. So watch what we can do. I want to show you how to use your calculator on problems like this or on bigger ones that we don't know. So go ahead and go to your graphing calculator. And if I want to do, let me show you, press the math button. And under math, there's the cube root. And then you have x root. Let's do the cube root first, okay, just for fun. So press where you get the cube root, and let's say I have the cube root of 64. Please do not do this on easy ones, okay? Practice, because it'll be on the no calculator part of the next quiz. But say I now need the 4th root. Say I need the 4th root of 21. To use the x root, you have to plug the root in first. So you're going to do 4 math, hit the x root key, 21, and press enter. So it'll do the 4th root, the 5th root, the 6th root, the 7th root. It'll do any root you want, but you have to put the number in first, okay? All right, so we're getting about 2.1. So some of the homework problems ask you to round or to estimate it. So this would be what, 5.1, because that's 3 plus 2.1, and then 3 minus 2.1 would be 0.9. Okay, the next one. I have 1/2 x to the 5th equals 512. I need to isolate the x to the 5th. So how could I do that? Yeah, multiply by the reciprocal or 2, so that's x to the 5th, is 1024. So the answer is going to be the 5th root of 1024. Now I do not expect you to know how to do that. So we're going to use our calculators. So you're going to press a 5 and then go to math x root 1024. And what are you guys getting? 4. You're getting 4, and you would be correct. This is an odd root, so there's just one answer. So x equals 4. All right, last one, and then we're going to do the homework together and get it done. So here, we're going to do x plus 5 equals plus or minus the 4th root of 16. Now, I would not use my calculator because the 4th root of 16 is one of them that we know or are supposed to know. That's 2. So x is negative 5 plus or minus 2. And I know how to compute this. It's negative 5 plus 2, which is negative 3, or negative 5 minus 2, which is negative 7. Okay?
This is
Yes.
so the only time that you would have the plus or minus is if the exponent is an even number.
And you're solving an equation.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so now look at the worksheet I gave you. Let me stop the recording now.